Okay, so we've done a few book tags today, but you don't know that, and you're not going to know that because this is coming after we already did some other book tags.
Told them.
Anyway, we have been talking
surprise.
about our cheese book tag for like months. And it's been written. We just haven't had time to sit and do it.
Yeah.
And so we're going to do it. And then you can steal it. We hope you'll steal it and use it because who doesn't love cheese and books, right? Yeah.
I mean, people who are like...
And actually, this is probably a good time because it's going into like a holiday season and New Year's. And so like...
It's a good time to eat cheese.
It's like a charcuterie board of books. Bookuterie.
That sounds like a prostitution in a library. A prostitution? I'm not strong with the language.
Okay.
A prostitution in a library, I said. Great. I read books. I'm an idiot.
Okay.
Sorry, people, for having to listen to me.
So, we are going to start at the top.
Wow.
Number 1. All right. Extra Sharp Cheddar. This is a book that is an old standby. Something you can rely on. You know, or you can use an author even. Something that you know is always going to, it's going to be good. It's going to be tasty. No matter what you get, it's going to be great. So I'm going to go with an author because I'm going to say Riley Sager. Because even the ones I haven't liked of his have been good. And I mean, he's got like 8 at this point, 7. And I've liked every single one of them. And they're always fun. They're just a fun read. And yeah, so he's not really like a super old standby because I've only been reading him for like a year. But I've read all of them pretty close together and I've really enjoyed them. And then I think if you're going to talk about like an old standby in terms of a book that I could always go to and still enjoy, we'll say Catcher in the Rye, but I say that all the time. So Riley Sager, what's your old standby?
My old standby.
Your extra sharp cheddar of a book or author.
Tasty, delightful, inspires conversation, comes in a variety of slightly adjusted flavors, lasts for a long time, is suitable to be taught during English class. I'm going with Frankensteiner. Excellent book. So many things in there to enjoy. Beautifully written. They might take their dinner. I don't think so. And just generally, a thing that I've read, I don't have to read this book 15 times, 20 times, and I still never get bored. I'm still very interested every time that I read it. Much like I'm interested every time someone says, hey, there's extra sharp cheddar over here, and I kick small children on my way to get at it. Cheddar.
Okay. So the next one is Swiss Cheese, a book that is somewhat enjoyable, but also loaded with holes.
Oh, we're going to take the same book here.
I don't know if we will.
Okay, hopefully we won't.
Okay, you already know what you want, so I'm going to let you go first, because I don't know yet. So you go first.
Ooh, all right. I'm going to go first. This is a book that I enjoy that's got some pretty big holes in it. I'm not talking about your mom. I'm talking about... What? You don't think so? I'm talking about Angels and Demons by Dan Brown. And you can put almost any Dan Brown... That's a good Dan Brown book in here. Because, he's got several books that I really enjoy. But most of them have got just, glaring plot holes and some utter nonsense. And some of his theories are so, wackadoo McGee that it's like, what the heck are you even talking about? But that's all right. It's a book. You're allowed to be wackadoo McGee. But yeah, very enjoyable, but flawed. I'm going to go with my favorite one, Angels and Demons.
I'm actually going to go with the Fear Street books because they're so much fun. And they really are, cheesy because they're, they fill that, when you're oh, I'm hungry, and you want cheese. And, Swiss cheese does it. It fills that, I want cheese. But then you're well, that was kind of a lot of holes in that cheese, but it was still cheesy. So... I mean, they're absolute nonsense. They don't make any sense if you really tried. I will say, though, about R.L. Stine and the Fear Street books is they're still more held together than a lot of, contemporary YA mysteries and thrillers. Because at least, I feel like if you just slightly suspend, suspend disbelief. Yeah. If you do that just a little bit, you can be yeah, whatever. I mean, they're fun. But, I mean, if you really dig into it, sometimes you're wouldn't somebody in this town be how are all of these crimes happening on this one street? Maybe you don't live there.
Right. Is it located in Gotham? What's happening?
Yeah, right, exactly. At some point, it's just this doesn't make any sense. It's 35 books about all these families. And, like, there's only supposedly 5 houses on the street, so what is going on?
A lot of movement, but you would think there would be.
Right, but also, like, half of them don't live there, and then, yeah, it just, sometimes if you really dig into it, you're like, how are all these people having parties, and how are all these teenagers, like, these serial killers, like, it just doesn't make sense.
And
but
really, like,
and how much revenge do you need?
Up to police presence. Like,
Right.
At this point, just park a cop car, like, right there.
I mean, maybe it is set in Gotham. Because it does have the same problem. They don't seem to have any kind of, like, law enforcement.
There is always getting murdered and beat up and betraying people.
All right, so the third one is Roquefort. Something that everyone seems to think is amazing, but is just not for you. I don't... Like, I think there's, like, certain authors. I'm going to go with, I guess, like... And I don't really dislike him, but I'm going to say Chuck Palahniuk. Palahniuk, however you say his name. Just because I know he's really, really popular, and people seem really into him, but, like, it's just not for me, but I don't feel like it's bad. Like, there's definitely people I can be like, people like, and I'm like, I don't know why you like them, that it seems like garbage, and I feel like Roquefort should still be, like, something that you hear but spoken about in, like, a quality way. You know, not like just this is like a trash entertainment. So I'm going to say that Chuck Paul, whatever his name is.
I can't think of the name of the book that I'm trying to think of right now.
Oh.
It's that big one that I read, like 1,200 pages with a million footnotes. But we saw the movie with the hipster guy.
Oh, Jest. Some Infinite Jest.
Infinite Jest, yeah. So anyway, Roquefort, if you don't know, is an extremely expensive blue cheese that
right. I
seems
feel like it has
to
to
be
elevated.
Some people either absolutely love it or absolutely hate it. Strangely enough, Infinite Jest is like that, in that most people go, this is one of the greatest books ever produced. And other people go, this is a child masturbating on a page, and it's idiotic. So I probably should pick one of those sides, but I kind of ruined the point of this book. I kind of in the middle, in that there are parts of it that are great, and I really enjoy, and parts where I'm like, this guy is just ranting incoherently because he can. He's like screwing with us on purpose. He's deliberately writing nonsense. Or is it that he's a genius, and I can't tell? But I was like, no, I'm pretty sure large parts of it are nonsense. Some of it's pretty smart. So anyway, yeah, that book, Infinite Jest, Roquefort.
All right, the next one is Gouda. A book or an author that is underrated and underappreciated. And I'm going with Ian Reid. I'm thinking of Ending Things. Then We Spread, then Foe. That's the order of his books for me. But I don't understand how he's not like everyone in the world's favorite author. Because he's like the best thing I've ever read in like 20 years. And I'm like, I haven't read an author that I've been like, this person is so good. And like, I just can't get enough of how good he is. And it's like, you kind of are like, you know, when you show up at a party with Gouda and everyone's like, oh. And then they eat it. They're like, damn, this is good. And you're like, yeah, it's Gouda.
Mm-hmm.
It's Gouda. And Gouda is Gouda.
Smoked Gouda. It's also excellent. Aged Gouda. Fantastic.
But yeah, so that's my Ian Reid. What about your Gouda?
I don't know. I guess, I don't know if this counts. This is not I don't know if this is, I mean, it must be popular. It could turn into a movie at some point. So it must have been pretty popular. But I never, like, ran into anyone. I've never met someone who's read this book. John dies at the end. This book is amazing. It's absurdly hilarious. It's so witty. It's a little bit creepy. It's incredibly creative. It, like, breaks all the rules of, like, writing a book and yet still is, like, coherent and easy to follow. Yeah, book's fantastic. It's, like, a masterpiece of, like, of weirdness. And I don't know anyone who's read it. Not one person have I met. So if you read this, good job.
Well, that's going into our next one, which is a book you wish people knew about, just like Cotswold cheese.
Ooh.
And if you don't know about Cotswold cheese, and I'm sure Sir Chunk will tell you even more, it is a very delightful cheese. It's a double glosser, so it's similar to a cheddar.
Sort of like a cheddar, yeah.
But it also has, like chives in it?
Onions and chives.
Yeah, and it's soft, but, like, not, and it makes literally the best grilled cheese that you have ever had in your life. Because it melts pretty well for the grilled cheese, but it has, like, an extra little tang and, like, flavor to it. So a book like Cotswolds, which is just a book you're like, why does no one know this book exists? And I just said that with Ian Reid, so I can't do that one. So I'm going to say, What is a book I wish everyone knew existed? Oh, no. Do you have one?
No.
Oh, no. We're going to pause for a second.
Yeah.
Okay, we are back with our Cotswolds picks.
First of all, Cotswold is one of the greatest cheeses that there ever was. What do they call it at Whole Foods? They call it by a different name. I forget what it is. Remember? No?
Don't they just... Oh, it's like Somerset or something.
Yeah, they have a weird name for it. Now, if you see an orange cheese, that's basically cheddar, with chives and onions in it, and you're thinking, what is this? Don't question it. Just buy it and eat it. It'll change your life. Unless it's poison. I guess it will still change your life. So anyway, I want to go with Christopher Moore's Lamb, which is another book that's like not super well known, I don't think. And I really like that it's quite an interesting combination of poignant and sweet and yet incredibly obnoxious at the same time. Two things I enjoy. So yeah, that's a book you should enjoy. But even more importantly, try some Cotswold if you never have. It's amazing.
All right. I'm going to go with one that I wouldn't say that, like, people haven't heard of. I would say I just don't think it's, like, as popular as it should be. I changed my mind, though, as I was doing that. So that's what I do. All right. I'm going to go with The Lion Game by Ruth Ware. And she's popular. So, like, it's not like she's nobody. But I don't hear a lot about it, and, like, maybe people just don't like Ruth Ware, or they didn't like The Lion Game. But I really liked The Lion Game. It's one of those things that I like where it's a little bit of, like, past and present. But it's done in a very interesting way. And what I thought was great is it's a mystery about something that happened that everyone was involved just pretended didn't happen and disappeared from, like, talking about it. And then they're like, it comes back to haunt them later on. So you're getting kind of a really interesting look at, like, all of the people that you're currently hanging out with know about this event, but you don't, and they don't want to talk about it, so you're only getting pieces of it. But then even once it's revealed what happened, then you're also trying to figure out, like, how or did this come back to light? So, yeah, I liked it, and I like how it switches back and forth a little bit. And it had like a impactful, I think, story too, in terms of, like, you know, some social commentary and stuff about, like, girls and, yeah. So the next one is American Cheese. It's not actually good, but it pretty much fits the bill. So unlike Swiss, which was loaded with holes, this is, like, it's fine. I mean, it does everything, but you wouldn't necessarily be like, this is great literature, but it's enjoyable and you like it. So, okay, he has one.
Okay. I'm going to go with, I forget the writer because I'm stupid. I'm going to go with The Enemy.
Charlie Higson.
Charlie Higson. Yeah, sorry, Chuck. Yeah, The Enemy by Charlie Higson. He's got like 7 or 8 of these in the series. You ain't got to read all 8. But this is a great example of a book that's kind of crap, I would say. Sorry, Charlie, again. But fun. It's literally just zombie apocalypse murder. So there's a bunch of kids. All the adults just turn into essentially zombies. So the kids have to, like, fight their way across England. Fighting adult zombies. It's just as dumb and pointless as it sounds. There's not really anything else to the plot. They just introduce a bunch of characters. They can kill them off in a variety of ways. But if you just want to read pointless, actiony, dumb violence with zombie things, this is exactly what you want. But it's not good. But I like it.
All right, I'm going to go with, because this is going to be surprising for me. Because, you know, I talk a lot about how much I hate romance. But I also have a big collection, and I have read the first, I don't know, out of 160-something books. I think I've read the first 85.
I don't like romance.
Right, Danielle Steele. Danielle Steele. Anne of Green Gables is not a romance novel.
And she just talked about having 85 Danielle Steele books.
No, I know. I don't like romance, but I do like Danielle Steele. And she is a good example of American cheese. Because it is literally, you know how, like, craft singles are, like, not even cheese, they're cheese food?
What you feed the cheese.
That is essentially what Danielle Steele's books are. I mean, they are, at this point, I'm pretty sure she has, like, 3 templates that she just changes the names and locations of and then pops out a new book. I mean, they're so formulaic. They're ridiculous. They are romance, but they're a little less, like, they're not sexy romance, you know, and I don't care. Like, hers are interesting to me because they're usually in, like, cool settings. But they're basically just about rich people. And then rich people and, like, sad things that happen in their families and in their lives. And there's usually some, like, major historical event around it. So there's one that's, like, during the Vietnam War. And then there's one on the Titanic. And then there's the Russian Revolution. But, I mean, they're pretty much just, like, they're not good. But I enjoy them. And so I'm still, I decided I took years off. I haven't read a Danielle Steele book in like 15, 16 years. But I'm going to go back to them because I had collected all of the ones that I had read. And then I'm like, oh, she has like 80 something I haven't read still. And, just like Sir Chunk is going back and reading Stephen King, even if he doesn't love him, like, it can't hurt every so often to just pick up a Danielle Steele book. They're fun. I'm going to get through it, and I'll probably be like, well, this was crap. But at least it will be like a couple hours of entertainment. I know what I'm getting with her books.
Plus, it just reconfirms the fact that you love romance books.
I don't. All right, so Mozzarella Cheese, a book that is complex, but it still holds together even when you use it in different ways. I don't know how that works.
I should have saved John Dies at the end of this.
All right, so something that's complicated as a book. Do you have one?
Not just yet.
All right, I'm going to go with an old standby. I'm going to go with And Then There Were None. Because there's a lot of pieces in this book. And somehow, it's just perfect. I mean, it's so easy for this book to just, like, not work. Like, how do you come up with 10 ways to realistically kill people off following a nursery rhyme? When the nursery rhyme has, like, silly things, like bees and somebody falling asleep on, like, on the side of the road or, like, something. And yet, it totally works. And how do you come up with the twist in a way that keeps you reading, that you can't figure out, and then even after you figure out, you go, how did I not get that? But it's just, it's perfect. Like, there's a reason Agatha Christie is as popular as she is, and this book, I feel like, is the reason. I mean, I know she's written other books and they're good, but, like, man, this book is just spot on. It is a little, like, hard to read now, just because it's, like, kind of slow at the beginning, and it's obviously dated, but I think it's only, like, 200 and something pages, so, like, just get through the first couple chapters, and then people start dying, and then it's fun and entertaining. So, what do you think?
All right. I'm kind of cheating a little bit because wanted to play, talk about too much. Sorry, I'm going with frickin' Hamlet because it's very complicated. There's a lot of layers of characters and betrayal and shenaniganery and just complex emotion and all these sort of symbolic phrases that tie together to give you a hint of what's happening. It's a delight. It's an absolute delight. It all comes together perfectly when, I don't want to have any spoilers for Hamlet because it's just been out for about 400 some odd years. So there you go, Hamlet.
All right. Next one is Parmesan, a book that gets better with age. And I think we talked about this in a different one, but I'm going to say The Great Gatsby because every time I read it, I like it more. I appreciate it more. I understand the concepts more. I feel like you can, like, age into this book for sure. So yeah, The Great Gatsby.
Okay, if you watch our other book tag, I apologize. I'm using the same answer because it's too perfect. I'm going once again, Dandelion Wine, Ray Bradbury, because it's all about nostalgia and lost youth and re-experiencing and remembering your past trials and tribulations and joys as, like, a youngster, and you can't appreciate that until you get to be an old, inept person whose back hurts from sleeping, right? That's what
Right, like Parmesan cheese.
Right. Parmesan cheese always hurts my back when I sleep.
Right, exactly. Right. All right, next one is Brie, a book set in France. I don't read a lot of books set in France, oddly. Like, I mean, I guess I could go with Les Mis, but I'm going to go with Sarah's Key. I talked about it a few times, just because that's, like, I thought it was really interesting because I don't know a lot about, like, the French people during World War II, and apparently they were, like, not all the French people, but there was, like, the French government was like super cool with like Nazis because, whatever. And so that was something I didn't really know a lot about. So it gave me like an interesting historical perspective. Plus the story was just appealing to me. So, yep, I'm going to say for my French book, Sarah Ski.
All right. So my initial thought was to use a book I've once again used way too many times already, which is All Light You Cannot See, which is great, stuck in France.
You used it like twice.
But I'm going to go and do something a little different. This is not set in France, but there are some scenes that take place in France. I think it's mostly set in Wales, actually, during World War II. And it's codenamed Verity, which is about these basically female pilots, like, running missions during World War II. And it's pretty good. The book itself is I like it, I don't love it, but it's got one scene that's so, sometimes you read a book and the book's only okay, but this one scene is so insanely good that it makes up for the whole rest of the book being mediocre. That's what this book is like.
Okay, so, the next one is Wensleydale. Wensleydale?
Wensleydale.
Yeah, Wensleydale, which is a nice cheese, but for this, it's just a British book or author you like, because that's a British cheese. And this is hard for me because literally...
It's also a hard cheese. Not that hard.
It's not a hard cheese.
It's a semi-hard.
Literally, my favorite thing in the world is Britain.
Wensleydale's pretty hard.
I love all things British. If you don't know this about me yet, I'm like obsessed with Britain. I love British culture. I love British books. I love British movies. I love British like dialects. I like every British history. Like my focus in college was British literature, particularly like romantic and Victorian British literature. So coming up with a British writer I like is very hard, or a British book I like, mostly because that's pretty much my thing. So I seek out British authors. I seek out books set in England.
Especially romance by English authors.
No. And like I could literally come up with like thousands, but I'm going to go with one I read fairly recently. And I think it actually it's a very British feel to it. So I think it's like, that's important because like the British part is kind of critical to the plot. And that's Penance by Eliza Clark. And I think I really loved this book. I did a review on it in my last like recap, but, really great sort of look at true crime, kind of written as if it's a true crime novel, but it's about not an actual crime. So it's just very well written, a lot of social commentary, a lot of things happening in the book, and I highly recommend it. And I guess her other book, Boy Parts, is supposed to be really, really popular, and I haven't read that one yet, so I'm looking for that. I think I asked for it for Christmas. I might not have, but yeah, so Eliza Clark, Penance. Speaking of Clark, I know who you're going to go with.
Am I going to ruin everything?
Because they're like, I need another book. I need different books.
All right, so I'm going to go with a book that's set in England, because that's what we have to do. This is a bit of a chunky book, but I enjoy it. It's Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clark. And this is kind of a weird book in that it's sporadically funny. Like, if you've ever read Jane Eyre, it has very similar satirical comedy as Jane Eyre does, but it's very sparse in the book. I wish there was a little bit more of it, but essentially it's like, there's like these two magicians and things, so it's like a realistic England, like sort of like just at the turn of like the 1800s, like the early 1800s, but there's actual magic. People do actual magic, but only like two people for most of the book can do magic. A few more show up later. It's kind of weird. It's like a little bit of a mystery in parts, not much, but just a lot of sort of like fun characters, people taking their dinner again. It's a delight. It's British. Boop. Okay.
All right, next one is Asiago. So either a book set in Italy or just a good summer read. Because it has that like feeling of being like in Italy in the summer and, in the sunlight. So I'm going to go with the summer read. And, I'm going to just go with another old standby, I guess. I'm going to go with the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, which is pretty much like the ultimate in summer read. Very good, like, summer setting. I mean, I could have gone with a lot of different things, and also I think it is in Italy or Greece, a part of it. So, yeah, I'm going to go with, for my Asiago, I'm going with the Sisterhood of Traveling Pants.
Well, when I think of summer, I think of God's Anvil, one of the hottest places on earth, which I believe is set in the Arabian Desert. I don't know. I think.
God's Anvil.
Yeah, that's the name for one of the hottest areas on the planet.
Oh, I thought this was a book. I'm like, I've never...
No. That's just literally one of the hottest places on Earth. But I'm going with a book that takes place in the desert for about half of it. I liked it as a kid. It's a great book. You feel hot when you're reading it because of all the sand. I'm going with The Black Stallion. It's a horse. It's a kid on an island. Then it's a kid in the desert. Then he's in a horse race. Then he's running around and stuff on a horse. Yeah, it's pretty fun. I love it. One of my favorite books when I was a kid. Le Stallion Noir.
All right. So next time we're gonna go with halloumi, which, if you didn't know, is one of my favorite cheeses. Halloumi is literally like a meal in itself. So we went with a small book that packs a punch. Because like halloumi, you can basically just have a little bit of halloumi and you're like, there's dinner. Because it's like so delightful and it's filling too. So I'm going to go with a novella that I loved and just couldn't get enough of and can't wait to go read again at some point. And this is Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. And just loved the book, loved every page of it, every second of it. And it's a fairly short and fairly quick read, but it doesn't feel like unfinished. You know, a lot of times when you read a novella, you're like, oh, they could have done more. I mean, I wouldn't mind spending more time with like the characters and in the world, but it basically was like, here's the plot, here's the events, we're going through the stages, and it didn't feel like any part was rushed, but it also felt completely like fulfilling, which is really hard to pull off in a novella. So I'm going with that. I know another novella you like that's short.
It's short and packs a punch?
Yeah.
Like you.
No, I'm small.
Oh.
And packs a punch.
I don't know if I'm going to say the thing that she thinks I'm going to say. Maybe she does. I'm going to go with... I just forgot the name of the stupid thing. Pause it, because I'm stupid.
Okay, we're back. He remembered the name. I thought he was going to go with Piranesi, but he said he already did Susanna Clare.
Right.
So.
I do really like Piranesi, but I don't want to do the same author like twice in like 3 things or whatever. So I'm going to go for an author I also overuse. I'm going with The Mist by Stephen King. It's like 130 pages, I think. And I love the character dynamics, and I love the chaos, and I love the sort of like unclear but very depressing ending. And I love the ending of the movie. The movie is like one of the worst movies I've ever seen, but the ending is hilarious. If you know what I'm talking about, watch the end of The Mist. Don't watch the movie. The movie is, you'll hate yourself for watching that garbage movie. But watch like the last 3 minutes. It's hilarious. Yeah, but the story's great.
All right, so we're going to go with, the next one is Colby. And this is a book, like Colby Cheese, that everyone seems to want to have with them or talk about or owns, but it's kind of unremarkable and fairly bland. You know, like everybody shows up and brings Colby to parties, and it's just sort of like the acceptable, it's their
Like,
cheese.
why did you bring Colby?
Right, but like,
you don't
Cheddar. You don't like hate Colby, so it's not like a book that like you're like angry someone brought, but you're just kind of like, meh. So, do you have one off the top of your head? Because
I don't.
All right, we're going to pause. Okay, so our Colby books. I'm going to go with one that's actually a very popular, sort of like classic sci-fi novel that I just was sort of like, eh. But, I mean, it does have a pretty cool ending, and I feel like that's what saves it, because otherwise it just was like not really that interesting or worth my time, and that's Ender's Game. Because other than like the little bit of a twist, the twist is pretty cool at the end, but otherwise it's just kind of like not that well written. The character's kind of annoying, and it doesn't really make any sense because he's like 5, and like I'm like, it's written like he's like 30, like his
to be a prodigy,
right? But it just doesn't work. It didn't work for me. I didn't hate it. And like I said, the ending kind of like saved it from being like a book I really didn't like. So I feel like, but I'm like, you know, if somebody's like, oh, Ender's Game's the best book, I'm just kind of like, eh. So that's kind of how I feel about those.
All right. Let's get the fisticuffs flying. So I'm going to choose a book that apparently is very popular. All the booktube people, from what I've been led to believe, love this book. I think it's Colby. That's Daisy Darker, which is just like a hacky family drama that like could have been a cool mystery, but they spend like only 10% of the book on the mystery. And then they're like, how about we just talk about our feelings and how I remember going to the beach when I see this rug. And that's like most of the book. and it's insufferably annoying. I really hated it. And, like, the big twist was, like, super obvious as well. But, yeah, like, I feel like this book could have been excellent if they actually spent the time on the mystery part of it, but they just wanted to talk about people's family drama instead. So I kind of wanted to punch this book in the face, much like I want to punch Colby when I find it at a wedding display.
Okay. So, the next book is Pepper Jack. So,
Ooh.
It's something that's got a little bit of a spicy kick to it. So, good. And just like I said, has a kick. And I know, like, a lot of times when you hear spicy and you think books, it's going to be like sexy romance time. And I'm not thinking that. I'm thinking more like just a book that you went, ooh. And for me, I'm going to go with something, I mean, I have talked about, but I haven't talked about it as much as, like, God Girl or Look Closer or some of the ones that had just, like, kick-ass twists. And that was Presumed Innocent. Just because the kicker here, the twist in it, was just, like, so good. And just so solid. And I was like one of the first, I actually saw the movie before I read the book. And then I read the book and I was like, they're both really solid. But it was one of the first things, that I just really had, like, a twist that made me go, ooh, that's done right. And it was after and then there were none, so I'm not going to go with that one. But, yeah, so Presumed Innocent by Scott Turow.
All right. I'm going to pick a book from a series. Now, I'm not sure if the book I'm going to pick here is necessarily the best example of this in the series, because I forget exactly what the best one is for what I'm going to be talking about. So I'm going to go with my favorite one. I'm going to go with Storm of Swords by R.R. Martin, Jorge. And the reason this is because I like this book. It's very good. But then periodically, throughout the book or throughout the series, there's arbitrary explicit sex sequences that come out of nowhere. So you're like, yes, he's hauling on a trench. Oh, battle tactics. Ooh, so many insignia on banners. And then all of a sudden, and then he tantalized her, I'm not going to say it because we're on YouTube, various sexual bits with his tongue. And the problem I have with that is whenever I read a sex scene in a book, I involuntarily picture the author writing the sex scene. And so imagine that you're reading about, two characters going at it in really detailed ways, and then you picture a suspender beret wearing George R.R. Martin hunched over a desk, eagerly typing this sequence, and it makes for a very unpleasant emotional response.
I just love the idea of George R. picturing George R. Martin.
I always think about, like, even Stephen King does it. I'm like, oh my god, this jowly dude talking about this.
All right. So the next one is vegan cheese. You're better off just not reading anything. So this is going to make people mad probably because we're going to think about things we really didn't like. Because we have tried being vegan.
It's hard.
And we're vegetarians. And, like...
We were vegan for, like, a year.
Yeah, and we were vegan for a year. And, like, there's good restaurants that can use vegan cheese well. And there's actually a place that makes vegan cheese near us. It's like, what flavor is it?
Cashew, maybe?
No, but, like, what's it supposed to be, like, mimicking?
I don't remember.
It's like a Brie almost or something. Yeah, and it's actually really good. But the reality is that...
Not that many people can pull it off.
It just generally is, like...
It's just going to ruin whatever.
Unless it's, like, mixed in so much you can't tell, or it's, like, ricotta, you basically don't want vegan cheese. Like, vegan cheese, if you're having a cheeseburger and you're having, like, a fake burger, obviously, and you're having vegan cheese on it, you're better off just having no cheese, because it's, like, that bad. And, like, forget grilled cheeses or anything that's vegan. So, better off with nothing. I think I'm going to say somebody that probably people really like and make them mad. And this is Paul Tremblay. I don't like him.
Oh, he's awful.
I don't like his books. I don't think they're creepy. I don't think they're scary at all. I don't know, like, literally, I feel like they're messy. Like, the plot doesn't work for me. I have not enjoyed them. I read 2 that I didn't end up finishing.
I finished 1 and I wish I hadn't.
Yeah, and so, like, I think it's just, like, I'd rather just not than, like, read more of his books. Sorry, Paul.
Yeah. I'm going to go with a book called Dead Silence by S.A. Barnes. And the reason I read it is because the cover looks really cool. The cover reminded me of the video game Dead Space. The premise was really cool. Long-distance space traveler, explorer people find a long-lost giant luxury spacecraft and to investigate it, and chaos occurs. I'm like, hells yes, this is going to be great. The problem is, what we had here was a really, really lousy writer who wants to write a romance book and said to herself or themselves, I don't know, boy, you know what would be cool? I'll set something in space and make it action-y, except I won't make it action-y, and my protagonist is a whiny idiot who only cares about making out with a navigational officer. Like, this has got to be, without exaggeration, one of the crappiest things I've ever had the misfortune of sticking my eyes into. So if you stumble across this book and you see the cover and you read the synopsis, you're like, ooh, this sounds appealing. What you should do is pause for a moment, get an anvil, smash it into your groin 7 to 8 times, and then leave. It's the same experience.
Well, so here's the thing. Yeah, we read the synopsis of this, and the cover looks really cool, and neither of us knew until I got him the book for Christmas, and then he read it, that it's S.A. Barnes is the pen name for Stacey Cade, who also wrote the YA book, The Ghost and the Goth, which would have told us a lot. Now, I'm not gonna pretend I didn't love The Ghost and the Goth. I absolutely adored The Ghost and the Goth.
How? She writes like she's in 3rd grade.
Because it's a fun book about a ghost and a goth. I mean,
doesn't know how to write a sentence.
No, it was fine. Like, it was fun, it was cheesy, it was cute. But the thing is, if you're going in looking for, like, a really, like, creepy, like, trapped on a spaceship in space.
The main character who's just head over heels over one of the other characters, and just all they want to talk about is how sad they are they can't make out with them. And I'm like, you're, like, almost about to get murdered, and you don't care because you didn't kiss the boyfriend.
Yeah, he thought this was going to be, like, a Dead Space Event Horizon kind of thing, and he got basically, like, Space Ghost and the Goth.
Yeah. The only Dead Space was in my heart when I read this.
Right, so, like, that, I can see the disappointment there. And again, both Paul Tremblay and S.A. Barnes and Stacey Cade are both teachers, I believe. And so
they've been beaten down by life. It's
right.
not their fault.
So, like, we really want to, like, stress that, like, we think they're awesome people.
No, I don't want to stress that. I don't know them. I'm neutral toward them as people. I have no opinions of them as people.
They're teachers.
They're crap writers.
You know how much it sucks teaching.
Yeah.
So, like, we're not saying they're bad people. I just can't. I don't like Paul Tremblay's writing. It doesn't work for me. And I mean, I don't like a lot of horror writers. And this was not for you. It's a romance,
also
right?
Really terribly executed.
Right. Okay. So moving on. We don't like to do negative. So
I do. I love negative. It's my whole thing.
Okay. Well, we're not doing that. We're moving on to nice, happy things. So the next one is Feta, a cheese that is salty. So we want a book with a salty character. So, Sir Chunk, give us a salty character.
All right. I got me a salty character. I'm going to go with True Grit, and I'm going to go with Rooster Cogburn, who, although not my favorite character in the book, is definitely one salty dude. He doesn't like anything. He likes swearing, he likes drinking, he likes shooting stuff. That's pretty much ends his list of interests. Definitely, I almost went with a pirate here, but I was like, no, I got to go with good old Rooster, that salty dog.
I'm going to go with the Bible, and I'm going to go with Lot's wife, because she's really salty.
Okay, that's like the best choice I've heard.
I'm just kidding. I'm not really going. I mean...
Okay, that was glorious. That's the best thing you've ever said.
Well, she's salty. I mean...
I know, don't overdo it. Just
all right.
Wallow in the praise and move on.
But no, like, for a book with a salty character, I don't know, man.
You should just stick with Lot's wife and go to the next thing.
I'm going to go with the pokey little puppy. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to go with that.
He actually, I don't know if you knew about this, he got rabies later in life and became the murderous little puppy.
He did not.
He did.
No.
He was known as Pokey because he used his bones sticking out of his legs to stab people to death.
That didn't happen.
That's exactly
the pokey little puppy is so cute.
Yeah, until he gets rabies and becomes a psychopath. The pokey little murderous puppy.
I guess I'll go with The Shining, because Jack Torrance is pretty salty, murdering his family and stuff. So, but yeah, the Lot one was a better answer. All right, so the next one is,
I should go with Ned Pepper as a salty character. Pepper.
What's that from?
Also from True Grit.
All right, so, yeah, True Grit. It's gritty like salt.
Yep.
Okay. Next is Ricotta. And this is a book that has something for everyone. Because you know how ricotta can be in lasagna, but also in, like, cannoli? You don't get a cheese that can just be that versatile. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be a book that literally everyone can find something they like in it.
I got one.
And I'm probably going to go with the same one that you were going to go with. And I'm going with Neverwhere.
No, I got
Okay.
something else.
Because Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman is the kind of book that I will like challenge you to not at least find something you like in it. Because it's action-packed, it's fantasy, like it's funny, it's emotional, there's a little bit of romance, there's like coming-of-age elements, there's like murderous like villains. I mean, it literally has every single... I mean, that's typical Neil Gaiman. Like, he just knows how to like cover every base with his books. And I feel like you can read it at any age. Like, if you read it as like, you know, a preteen or teenager, you're going to have fun with just like the action and the plot. You know, it's kind of got like an Alice in Wonderland feel. And then if you're older, you're going to like, you know, like the main character's kind of beat down by life and is like, he's escaping from the, you know, drudgery of like everyday work and life. So there's like an element of escapism in it. It's just, and like, I'm not like big on usually this kind of book, but it's just so fun. And I really would be surprised if like there wasn't, you know, even if you're not that kind of reader, I just feel like everyone would get some enjoyment out of it.
I love cannoli, but I hate lasagna. So like, I kind of have mixed feelings about ricotta. But regardless, I think there are people that will have mixed feelings about parts of this book, but I think in general, most people really like it. And it's hard to not at least like some parts of it. I'm going with what is one of the most well-known classics, and a book I think maybe one of the most read books in the United States. I'm going with To Kill a Mockingbird. Because like, although you might not like the white savior element, and you might not like some of the language in there, and obviously the ending is a little bit dark at times, but it has so many fun characters. It has so many just like clever, silly scenes. It has so many dark, meaningful scenes, moments of near heroism, moments of dark poopiness. Yeah, it's just a really well-balanced, extremely clever book with all kinds of parts, and it has one of the best protagonists of all time. Or at least narrators. Not really protagonists.
All right, so we're going to go with our last cheese. This is kind of has been a long one.
The final cheese. Our
last cheese, and this is paneer, which if you don't know is an Indian cheese, which I'm going to tell you, I discovered when I had palak paneer, which I'm probably saying wrong, and I'm sorry if I'm offensive to everybody in India, but I had palak paneer as our vegetarian airplane meal at one point. We were flying to England or something, and, you know, airplane food is not supposed to be good. And I remember being like, I don't know what this is, but it is a delight. And then I found out it was like a fairly common, like popular Indian dish, and now I'm like, that palak paneer stuff is really good. So we wanted to go with something that has a setting, maybe. You know, paneer, you don't see that often. You don't see it used, you know, in the U.S. anyway, or in, like, most Western countries. You don't see it used that often. So we're going to go with a book that has a setting, maybe, that is not super common. So I inadvertently am going with India, even though that wasn't my goal. So I'm going to go with A River Sutra, which is a book I read in my World Lit class. And I really, really loved this book. I don't remember a whole lot about it. I guess it was like short stories, but it's all like set around the river. And just like Indian stories. And I loved it because, again, it was like other than Siddhartha, I think it was like the only thing I'd read that was like set in India. And then this year I also read Under the Tamarind Tree, which is something I also enjoyed because it was about partition. And that's something I don't know a lot about. And it was set in Pakistan. But I'd really love to read more. I mean, part of it's obviously it's a translation issue. We just don't get, we only get so many books that get translated. But I would love to read more books about Pakistan, India, like that region, especially like things like partition. Because I know that's not like a fun period in history or anything, but literally my knowledge of it before reading that book, it was Ms. Marvel and Doctor Who. And I feel like I should probably know more about a major period in world history. And it's just not something we were taught in school. And so I heard about it when I watched Doctor Who and was like, what is this? And I researched and was like, this was like a major moment in history, and how is this not something? So then when Ms. Marvel came out and obviously was like talking about it, I was like, wow. And then I really enjoyed Ms. Marvel for that reason too, because I just don't feel like we get enough of this, like, we don't get enough exposure to other, cultural, like, historical moments or just cultural worlds. So obviously I enjoy being exposed to new cultures, and so that's something, I'd like more of. So if you know other books set in that area that are really good, I'd love to read more.
Remember when we were on the airplane and they passed us out pizza for our vegetarian snack?
No, it was a turkey sandwich.
No, that was different. The woman tried to slap me in the face with a turkey sandwich. And I was like, I ain't taking that. I don't want that. No, they gave us the pizza and it had rennet in it. I was like, this isn't vegetarian. And the dude was like, yes, it is. I go, no, it's not. You see this? That's not vegetarian. He's like, yes, it is. And he stormed off. And I was like, cool, bruh.
Did you know that most commercial rennet, though, is actually microbial?
This was like a while ago, though.
No, I know. But I didn't know that. That most
anyway,
of
you're microbial.
Most of the rennet still being used that's like directly from like animal stomachs is usually like with artisan cheeses and small batch, because for like commercial production it's easier to buy like the cheap stuff.
The more you know.
Well, I had to research this.
Anyway, so I almost went with the book for this, The Kite Runner, because I do really like the setting, and it has a lot of really beautiful, well-written moments.
Yeah, I read 1,000 Splendid Suns.
But I hate the protagonist so much in that book, and the author does not know, at least I don't believe, based on the writing, I don't think the author is aware of what a piece of human trash his protagonist. Like, I can read books that are a piece of human trash protagonist and still enjoy it, but the author, I don't think, is aware of what a terrible person his main character is. So I can't pick that book. So I'm going to pick a book with an even rarer setting. I believe only 2 books that I'm aware of are set in this particular location. And the one I'm going to talk about, I think, has won more awards than any book of all time. It's won like 66,215 awards. And of course, it's set in the famous area of Hark.
You can't talk about like the book you read about like child soldiers in Africa or something.
It's the Badlands of Hark.
Hark is not a real place. Pick a real place. That's what I want you to think.
Anyway.
There are other cultures that we are not exposed to. Pick a real one.
I guess I'll just stick with the Kite Runner then. Okay, boop.
Fine, tell us about Hark.
No, it's fine. Just because it's a rare setting, she's being a xenophobe over here, doesn't want to hear about Hark. So.
I mean, yeah, we could go with any sci-fi fantasy. Those aren't real places.
Does it say real place? It's in an unusual...
Okay, asterisk. By rare setting, we mean a real one. Because obviously, fictional settings that don't exist are going to be rare. Narnia is rare because it's only written in the Narnia books.
All right, well, what's that short story where the guy gets stuck on that island and the tiny little rock in the middle of the ocean? And he sits there. I don't remember. But he's just like stuck on this little rock for like the whole time.
Is that a Stephen King story?
I don't know what it is. But there's not too many stories where a dude...
Did you read that good book about like child soldiers that was good?
Night?
Song for Night?
A Song for Night? Yeah, that one's pretty cool.
Then you read another one, I thought, about child soldiers in like Uganda or something.
I don't know, I probably did, but I forget.
Did you read Blood Diamond? Is that a book?
No, I don't know if it's a book, but I didn't read it.
What about books in Japan? You love Japan.
Yeah, but I don't read too many books set in Japan, do I? And there's also lots of books set in Japan.
How about Usagi Yojimbo? Oh, there's your book you're waiting for high release, which was a different book tag. They release you're anticipating.
Usagi? Yeah. I'll go with the Kite Runner. It has some really nice moments. It has a real piece of garbage for me.
Also Grass Cutter.
Grass Cutter by Stan Sakai is amazing, but that's not a novel.
Why? Why can't you promote Usagi?
Okay, I love Usagi, but also Japan is a very utilized location. That's not a rare location.
Well, it's not like in Western culture. We don't get a lot of Japan
Neither
books.
is Hark, but that's not good enough for you.
He just really wants to tell you all about Hark. Anyway.
There's these lands, and they're kind of bad.
Well, is there a second book in Hark?
Yeah, Return to Hark, or Badlands of Hark 2, The Harkening. Or
you don't remember?
Harkaloo. Badlands of Hark 2, Electric Harkaloo. Hark, Here Come the Badlands. I don't know what it's called. But the first one is great. And, it won BAFTA and Bram Stoker
BAFTA.
and some Emmys.
British Academy.
It won a Tony. It won 16 or 17 Pulitzers. It won the silver medal at the Olympics. It won a citation from the city of Boise. It won the pie eating contest in Sheboygan.
Did it win the Nathan's hot dog eating contest at Coney Island?
No one can beat Joey Chestnut. No one.
All right, maybe Joey Chestnut will want to do a cheese book tag.
I hope so.
Bye.
Boop.